Have y'all figured out the guest speaker? Surprise! The look on my husband's face right now. All right. So I am your guest speaker for the day. Pastor said that every Sunday, y'all see me read the scriptures and you see me interact with the kiddos, but you don't really know who I am. But today, you'll hear my testimony and get to know me. If I had to tell you how the world sees me, how the natural man sees me, they see a slightly bougie, hood-adjacent princess that's a little rough around the edges. She's a special education teacher at a therapeutic school, a mother of 2 special needs boys that will advocate for them like no tomorrow. A wife of that John Yates man, and I love me some John Yates. She will tell you quickly not to play with her 4 F's, her faith, her family, her finances, and her food. And she has an absolute obsession with Minnie Mouse. However, if you ask me who I am those things. But first, I am the prodigal son, and I am Ruth. Let me explain. The prodigal son. Y'all know the story, right? Well, to sum it up, the son leaves his father's house, goes out, acts all crazy, hits rock's bottom, comes crawling back to the father. He expects to be punished, to be treated than less than, but the father welcomes him with open arms and treats him like royalty. When I was young, I knew the father. As a teenager, I experienced some church hurt or some pain, and I walked away. I did whatever I wanted to do, hanging out with older men, partying, fighting, acting crazy. And when things got bad, I knew I could always come back crawling hands and knees to the Father. And as always, He welcomes me with open arms. Well, now, how do I relate to Ruth? Just to recap Ruth was married to Naomi's son. Ruth and Ruth's husband, Naomi's son, they died, and Ruth lost everything. She lost her home. Naomi had heard about the Lord giving people some bread, so Naomi had decided to go back home. When Naomi told Ruth, her daughter-in-law, that she was going back home, Ruth said, I'm going to follow. Where you go, I go. Your God is my God. However, Ruth refused to leave Naomi because she knew that Naomi was looking for better. And because she found Naomi, she found favor, and everything she lost was returned to her. When I returned to the loving arms of the Father, He gave me spiritual mothers to help me in my relationship with Jesus. I watched the man I married die to become my Boaz. What does that mean? I watched the arrogant, stubborn, selfish man die to his flesh, accept Christ, and become the man that God intended for me to have. You can fix your face, honey. I love you. I suffered miscarriages, but was blessed with 2 boys that loved their mama. You can't tell them boys about their mom. They be ready to fight for their mama. And now, well, children just seem to find me. I literally will try to hide from them. Doesn't work very well. I have my church babies, my work babies, and even though my work babies, they show out from time to time, they know in that classroom, they are loved. The homes that were lost were given back, and I found that same favor that Ruth found. So what connections do these stories have? They have these powerful stories are stories of submission and surrendering. Your way in following the lead of the Father. So now that you have some background on me, let me really dive into my testimony and tell you how I am where I am now. When I came to Shabbat, I was broken. My husband was getting on my nerves. I was trying to navigate being a special needs mom. I was learning the ropes of special education for my children. My mother was sick, and I was flat out going crazy trying to please everybody. But as always, at my lowest time, I knew to call on Jesus. So I started to try to find a church home. First, I started going back to the church that John and I were married in, but that didn't last long, being honest. I got drunk off the first communion. That's another story for a different day, but it really happened. My cousin kept telling me about Shabbat, and silly me, being my silly self, I had judged Pastor off of silly things that kept me refusing to come. But now I know that those thoughts were nothing but a trick from the enemy to stop me from walking in my calling. So one day I came to Shabbat, not knowing that my life would be changed forever. I started to get into the Word. I started building a relationship. A relationship, that is so important, a relationship with Jesus. And my ministry journey began. God told me to become a minister, a teacher of His Word, that I had a gift of teaching His Word in a different way. So I was obedient. I accepted the call. And that's when my life actually turned into chaos. We had to move out of the home that we were in and back with my family. That was rough. That was rough. God seemed fit to move us to Waldorf, but I wasn't being obedient because I should have gone to Virginia. But in my head, I had to stay close to my mom. So the boys entered Charles County school systems, and that's where I really learned to advocate. Everything was a battle. One IEP meeting got so bad, I actually thought I was going to leave out of there in handcuffs. On the home front, again, things were bad. We had lost our apartment. We started living in a hotel. While living in that hotel, I actually was ordained at age 33. Still not being obedient and trying to stay close to my parents. Finally, though, I had enough of bouncing the boys place to place and all that foolishness. So I finally gave up of trying to have my way and staying close to my parents. I surrendered. I asked God what was I supposed to do? And finally it clicked. I had to go. I moved to Virginia. I found favor on my job and I quickly became a favorite employee. The boys finally got what they needed in school and they didn't have to fight for it. It was so different. And he, sitting back there, is proof. When we were in Charles County, they didn't want to give him, it was a battle. Everything I had to fight, they didn't want to give him any services, anything. We moved to Virginia, and the first day I had taken him into the office in Virginia, when you are transferring over, you have to meet with an administrator and they review your grades and everything. When she seen what he was capable of doing, she quickly snatched him out of all of that stuff that they had for him. And she said, no, we have these supports for him. We have this support. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And I'm looking at her like, wait a minute. Is it really that easy? Stuff that I had to fight and literally, go to war for was just handed to me. But just because things were still didn't mean God still wasn't working. God started to deal with me about my health. So I started to focus on my health. I started my weight loss journey. And that was and is still rough. But to God be the glory. I am still down 119 pounds. Only God is keeping me on track, because if Sherelle Monique had her way, I like food and I would be eating everything. I just turned 40, so I had my first mammogram, and they told me there was a lump in my breast. But God said it was benign, and it was benign. The doctors told me that they found fibroids, and they wanted to remove my uterus out of fear of cancer. God said, let them, but there is no cancer. God began to prepare me for my next level of spiritual growth. And as this level begins, I am slowly learning how to allow others to be blessed by God through me. Things like taking care of my parents and pouring out into the youth that Jesus tells me to is all a part of my ministry. He reminds me just to be quiet and to stay the course. To remember that my visions and my dreams shall come to pass. And that everyone that was in my journey could not see me complete my journey. So with that, my testimony takes a pause. Not because it's finished, because it is still being unveiled or revealed to me. But I ask you to take away one thing that I've shared today: to surrender. My life changed when I surrendered and I let go. Amen. Just another announcement. There was a bracelet found. Oh, see, I told, I didn't know, I had just seen that